AFCON is about to punch a hill straight through Manchester United's forward line, and Ruben Amorim's answer is not a panic signing. It is an 18-year-old from the academy. With the Africa Cup of Nations set for late December into mid-January, clubs are bracing for call-ups. For United, the damage is clear. Bryan Mbeumo is expected to join Cameroon. Diallo will go with Ivory Coast, and Noussair Mazraoui is due with Morocco. Depending on when their federations demand release, all three could disappear as early as the second week of December to join pre-tournament camps, right before the most intense stretch of the Premier League season. Amarim admitted in his press conference that the situation is disappointing, but not a surprise. United knew when they built this squad that AFCON would bite. The club are trying to negotiate late releases, like they once did with Andre Onana, but there is no guarantee. Tournament regulations allow nations to call players up well before the opening game, and national coaches rarely compromise when they want a full preparation period. That means United must plan for a worst-case scenario. Several weeks without key starters in attack and at wingback, right as the fixtures pile up. What was striking in Amarim's answer was where he turned for solutions. He did not talk about rushing another transfer, or about abandoning his 3-4-3 system. He talked about the academy. And if you looked at the training pictures from Carrington on the day of that press conference, the hints were clear. Shea Lacey and Jack Fletcher were both with the first team group again. Lacey, in particular, is the name that keeps coming up. At 18, he is already one of the most highly regarded talents in the United youth setup. A left-footed winger and attacking midfielder, he is comfortable off the right, can play as a central creator, and has the technique to operate in tight spaces. This season, he has stepped up with England's youth teams, scoring on his debut. For the under-20s, and even training with the senior national side during international breaks. Inside United, he is seen as the closest thing the academy currently has to a first-team ready attacking talent. Amorim's system makes Lacey's profile even more interesting. In the 3-4-3, the two players either side of the central striker are not old-school wingers. They play in the half spaces, drifting inside to combine and pressing aggressively out of possession. That is exactly where Mbeumo and Amad have been so important. They stretch the pitch, run in behind, and link transitions. On paper, losing both at once creates a huge hole. On the pitch, it opens up a lane for a player like Lacey to prove he can occupy those same zones in a different way, with more creativity on the ball, more disguise in his passing, and the ability to receive on the half-turn between the lines. The fact that he has been a regular in first-team training is not a coincidence. United staff want him used to the tempo, the intensity, and the positional demands before he is thrown into competitive minutes. Reports from Carrington describe him as fearless in possession, willing to take on senior defenders, and comfortable switching between wide and central starting positions. In friendlies and under-21 fixtures, he has shown the variation you need in Amarim's attack. One game, he hugs the touchline and beats fullbacks one-on-one. The next, he drifts inside and plays as a quasi-number 10. Alongside Lacey, another name to watch is Jack Fletcher. Son of former United midfielder Darren Fletcher, he plays primarily as a left-sided 8 or attacking midfielder who can drift wide. His inclusion in training hints at a broader plan to have multiple academy options ready to plug gaps across the front line and midfield as AFCON absences bite. If Amarim wants to maintain balance, he could, for example, use Lacey on the right half space and Fletcher deeper on the left, supporting whichever senior forward leads the line. Then there is Joshua Zirkzee. The Dutch striker has long been linked with a move away in January, after falling down the pecking order behind Benjamin Sesko and Matheus Cunha. External reports suggest he is desperate for minutes to keep his national team chances alive ahead of the 2026 World Cup. What the AFCON situation changes is the calculus on both sides. With Mbeumo and Amad potentially absent for several league games, United will need every attacking option they have. That could turn Zirkzee from a likely departure into a crucial rotation piece. If he takes his chances during that window, the club may rethink any plans to let him go. Amorim's comments about the wing-back positions add another layer. He floated the idea of Luke Shaw operating as a dedicated left wing-back once he is fully fit, with Diogo Dalot shifting back to his more natural right side. That would free up Lisandro Martinez to return to the left center-back role and stabilize the back three. Crucially, it means he is not planning to use Martinez as an emergency midfielder, a role some fans had floated. Instead, he wants specialists in their best positions and intensity down the flanks. Put all of that together and a pattern emerges. United know they cannot buy their way out of every problem, especially with financial rules tight and multiple areas of the squad still needing work. Internal briefings emphasize that central midfield remains the #1 priority for the January window, not another forward. Targets like Antoine Semenyo remain on the list, but the timing is awkward. By the time any new attacker signs and adapts, the AFCON tournament could already be over, with Mbeumo and Ahmad back in Manchester. Leaning on Lacey, Fletcher and Zirkzee during those weeks allows the club to save its major attacking moves for the summer, while focusing short-term spending on the spine of the team. There is also a cultural angle. United have been criticized in recent years for losing the direct pathway from the academy to the first team, especially compared to the club's golden eras. The names are still there at youth level, but too few have genuinely threatened the senior squad. Giving Lacey and others real minutes in meaningful games, not just token cameos in domestic cups, would send a message through the academy that the route is open again if the talent and the work are there. Of course, there are risks. AFCON falls right across the busy festive program and the first weeks of January. United will face Premier League fixtures and potentially domestic cup ties with a thinner squad. Throwing a teenager into that environment can go either way. If he thrives, the narrative becomes "New star announced himself when the team needed him most." If he struggles, the criticism can be harsh and immediate. Amorim's challenge is to manage expectations. Give Lacey the right minutes in the right games, and surround him with enough experience that he is not asked to carry too much too soon. But you can see why the manager is tempted. Shea Lacey brings something United's attack still lacks, at times. Unpredictability from the right. A left-footed playmaker who can change tempo with one touch. In a system built on movement, pressing, and quick combinations, that type of profile can tilt close games, especially against deep blocks. Pair him with a more physical striker like Šeško and a hard-running forward on the opposite side, and suddenly, the AFCON period looks less like a crisis and more like an audition. The transfer implications will run quietly in the background. If Lacey takes his opportunity and Zirkzee contributes, it strengthens the argument inside the club that January should be about a midfielder rather than another wide forward. If the academy options look overwhelmed and goals dry up, the pressure to accelerate a deal for someone like Semenyo will grow. Either way, what happens between mid-December and mid-January will shape how United move in the market. On the surface, losing Mbeumo, Ahmad, and Mazraoui to AFCON is a problem. Under the surface, it might be the moment that forces Manchester United to trust their next generation and finally see if Shea Lacey is as ready as Carrington insiders believe. The real test is coming quickly. The only question now is whether, when AFCON pulls senior names away, Amarim doubles down on his academy plan, and whether one teenager can turn a difficult winter into the launchpad for his own Old Trafford story.